Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? Good. Nothing like perfect timing out here right on time. Wasn't planned, though. But it's so nice to see you all. Can we give Uma a big round of applause for her introduction again? I am so energized when I heard Umu's words and her introduction, the great job that she did speaking, and seeing all of you in this room gives me so much energy, so much inspiration, and so much hope for our future, too. So I'm Councilmember Shekhar Krishnan from our districts of Jackson Heights and Elmhurst, Queens. Do we have Queens in the house here? Yeah. All right, let's try that again. Come on, Queens, you can make some noise. Is Queens in the house? Yeah. All right. But it's so nice to see all of you from across the different schools. And I'm so proud to be here to speak with you all today, knowing the work that you're doing through Generation Citizen across your different schools, across programs, and across issues. And I want to say a big thank you to Kin and to Liz, both for their leadership of the program at the city level and the national level. Let's give them a big round of applause. And Liz and I have done work together in other capacities too, so it's nice to see you after several years. So, before even starting, I want to say it is really special to be here in this room talking about this issue. As Uma mentioned before becoming a council member, I was a civil rights lawyer for a long time, fighting against housing discrimination, representing and organizing tenants in some buildings where landlords have been harassing tenants to displace them from their homes, committing blatant discrimination. And in all of that work, there were many times that I'd come here to the City Bar Association for different events, for conferences, to talk about the issues of social justice and the work that we were doing as civil rights lawyers. In fact, the federal judge I had clerked for maybe about 10 or 13 years ago, he actually would come he's now passed away at the age of 100, but he would come to the city bar. He was one of the lawyers on this major civil rights case, Brown v. Board of Education, which I'm sure you all learned about in your schools, to desegregate all of our schools across the country. It was a major Supreme Court case. He was one of the lawyers on that case, and one of the briefs that he helped to write was always framed in his office. The work that he did on that brief for that landmark civil rights case was right here at the City Bar Association. He'd spend his time late at night in the library working on it, and the rest is history. But it's so nice to be in this room with all of you in this space talking about these issues. Now, I know all the different issues you're working on at the moment across different projects, across schools. We know, and you all know it best, that we face so many different crises in our city right now. Whether it's, as I'm sure you're all hearing too, and we're working hard in the city council, you have so many asylum seekers who are coming here, fleeing torture, persecution in their home countries, coming here in desperate need of housing, shelter, support, and resources. And our city has to do so much more to support them in these ways. We also know that we're facing a huge housing crisis in this city too, right? The rent keeps going up and up. It becomes more and more difficult to find a home and a place to live. And an issue that's important, those issues are really important to my district of Jackson Heights and Elmhurst and Queens. I always say we're the two most diverse immigrant communities in the world, and the best food too, brag about that. But we face these issues firsthand every single day. And on top of that, I'm also the chair of the Parks Committee in the City Council. And my role is to advocate and make sure that every single community has access to green space across our city. Because we know from COVID that having park space and good, well-maintained parks, you all know it too, is important for our public health, for our mental health, for our well-being. And the reality is some communities have access to really nice parks. But many communities like our own haven't had that for so many different reasons of injustice that go back decades. My district of Jackson Heights and Elmhurst, we rank 50 out of 51 council districts when it comes to park space. So we have some of the least amount of park space in all of New York City. But we were the epicenter of the pandemic. And so we saw, and I saw firsthand, how important it is to have access to green space, to have public open space, and how that's tied to our health and to our well-being. And so my work on our Parks Committee and the Council is to fight on these issues and to make sure that we think about parks and green space as a right that we all have, not a luxury or a privilege that some of us have and some of us don't. And so on so many different fronts, we are fighting all of these different issues. And it's a difficult, difficult battle. But what gives me so much hope is to look out and see each one of you and the work that all of y'all are doing to address these issues. Right now, as students, you bring the energy, the fire, you hold all of us and our governments at every level accountable to make sure that we are building a better world for each of you and the generations that come after us. And at the end of the day, isn't that what Generation Citizen is all about? And so there are two things in particular that I wanted to talk to you all about today in doing this work. The first is, you'll have seen through your projects, whether it's tackling issues from housing injustice to policing to health and health care, you're seeing how big the challenges are that we face and the fights ahead. But the one thing I'd say is when you come away after your projects too, keep in mind that as you go through school, try to find what is it that you're most passionate about. Each of you has something, and it could be something different. It could be arts, it could be music, it could be sports, it could be politics and government. But whatever it may be, try to look within you to see what issue do I care most about? What makes me get up every morning and say, this is the thing that I want to work on, that I want to push forward for? And it's okay if you don't know that now, and that may change over time as well. But to say to yourself, what is it that I love doing most, that makes me happiest? That's the project that I think we're all doing. I went through, I'm still going through. But try to find what that is and push forward on that issue. And when you do that, it is the small ways and the big ways that you're engaged in citizenship, right? Because it doesn't need to be one thing or another. It's how do we take the thing that we're most passionate about and help our community on those issues, whatever it may be. Let's say you're an artist and you love to paint. Well, we just worked with a community organization, an immigrants' rights group, in our one park in Jackson Heights, in Traverse Park, to paint all of the planters in our parks, but to put murals on them, or in Diversity Plaza, to do a huge mural for a Bangladeshi community, with themes about immigrant justice and social justice. And so you see there how art can be used as a way to advocate and fight for change, to make our public spaces better, more welcoming, safer, and celebrating our communities. And on every issue like that you care about most, there's going to be a way to connect with other people around you, to help people who may not have the same opportunities that you all do right now, or may desperately need your help or someone's helping hand in one way or another. And I think that's what our citizenship, our civic responsibility is. No matter what path we take, no matter how big or small the task is, in some way, when we know what we care about most, we use that skill to help someone around us who may need it in one way or another, in our community, in our larger city, and in our country. And it begins with knowing for yourself from the work that you're doing, what is that issue that makes me every morning get up and either feel energized or upset or passionate that I want to change this, and you keep pushing forward with it, and then you connect it with those around you. That is, at the end of the day, what it means to be an involved and engaged citizen, and what you've all seen through the different projects you're doing. The other thing I would say, and I see this in my work every single day, right? For me, I decided to go and be a civil rights lawyer to fight against racial discrimination and housing injustice, and that took me into my path in the city council. And I'm proud because in representing my community of Jackson Heights and Elmhurst, as the first Indian American ever elected to our city council, That means my voice, and I'm fighting to represent communities that have never had a voice in city government before. Whether it's our taxi workers, whether it's our deliveristas in our community, or so many others, or children like me who said when I was campaigning, I remember one story, I'll just say, that stuck with me too. There's a father I met when I was campaigning with a 10-year-old son, and he came up to me and he said, I just wanted to meet you because my son at 10 gets made fun of in school all the time because of the dark color of his skin. And I showed him, he's South Asian, I showed him your picture and I told him about who you were, and his face lit up. And he said to me, as his father, he said, so even I can go on to become a city council member one day or in government, even as someone who's a dark-skinned child too. And that stayed with me because I told the dad, and it brought tears to my eyes in the campaign. I told the father, I grew up feeling a lot of ashamed feelings about the color of my skin too. And I had to navigate all those issues. My parents and many of our families may have faced discrimination in many ways too. So I know what your son is feeling, and let him know that I'd love to meet him sometime and tell him that he is beautiful the way that he is, and he can achieve so many things in his own life. And I was so touched that about a month later, I saw the father in the park one day when I was campaigning in Elmhurst. We lost touch, didn't get his name, but things have a funny way of working themselves out. Because a month later, towards the end of the campaign, as I was visiting different mosques in our community, I didn't know that at the time, but I went to go visit the mosque where the father goes to pray. And he was there with his son. And so I was able to meet both of them. And together, they introduced me to their mosque and their congregation. And that came full circle in that moment. And I spoke to his son, Daniel, for some time. And that always stayed with me. And I bring up that story because I wanted to make a larger point too in my work and all the work that you all are doing. The fights that we face, the issues you worked on, they're not going to be solved overnight. We know this, right? Racism, homophobia, discriminatory policing, housing injustice, they go back decades. They tie together. Remember I was mentioning park space before. They tie together to a larger history of things that we're trying to undo when it comes to gender injustice, racial injustice. And so overnight, we're not going to be able to solve those problems. Poverty will continue. But you know what? You fight like hell to change them. You fight like hell and never give in, because that is the right thing to do. And you'll never know along the way whose lives you will touch. Which student sitting in your seat one day will look at you and say, hey, I can do this too. Or this makes me feel inspired to do something. And we fight on those issues, right? We think about what we're most passionate about, how we can connect it to all those around us, whatever the issue may be, and we push forward and fight because the world needs leaders like each and every one of you to do that, to stand up for someone else, to call out injustice when you see it, because you all have now been trained and you have that fire inside of you to be fighters for justice. And it's okay if the journey is long and will take decades, and some of the battles we fight seem like they're not solvable. And I feel that way too oftentimes in the city council. We find that this issue or that issue, maybe we solve this one problem, a new one comes up. Or we can't seem to really solve these issues in the first place because they're so much bigger. But that's okay. Because every step forward you take to call attention to an injustice, to lend your voice and raise your voice on that injustice and join up with everyone else around you who's doing that, that's the work. That's the journey. And that's what will make change in the long run. And I know each and every one of you is doing that right now. That's why you're in these seats in this program with the projects that you worked on. And that's what's so amazing about Generation Citizen, because it's teaching you exactly these values, these issues, which will last you a lifetime, no matter what it is that you do. And you keep putting that forward, you keep putting that foot forward. It will take days, years, decades, but then one day, each little detail of the picture that you paint, each little edge that you fill in and you color in, make a mistake, you go back on it, you push forward, you keep working on it. One day, you will step back and see a whole tapestry that you have completed, and in doing so, made a difference in the world around us. That's ultimately, I think, what citizenship and civic responsibility is all about, in one way or another. And you know what? In doing that, you're inspiring so many people that you don't even know you're inspiring, myself included. I see you all out here, and I know that our world, no matter how hard these fights may be, will be a better place because of all of you. With the opportunities that you had that I didn't even have growing up in school too, with how you've taken them to push forward on these issues that we're facing right now, sure, the fights are getting more urgent, and they're getting more real every single day, from housing to our climate. But you are impacting all of us and pushing us forward to do better, to fight alongside all of y'all too in this work, and to make change together. And there will be generations after you that will be inspired by what you're doing. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you all so much. Keep up that fight. I look forward to seeing you all out there and the work that you're all going to do too. Congratulations on the projects, and let's keep fighting forward. Thank you all so much.